Okay, we're going to work on today looking at some selection, and the example that we'll use, we'll draw a window, divide that window up into 4 quadrants, and then track the mouse movement. If the mouse is in the upper left, it'll draw Bob the Builder. Upper right, it'll draw Hello Kitty. Lower right, Miss Piggy. And lower left will be Freddy Krueger. Okay, so that's the idea. Let's see how we go ahead and approach that in processing. Okay, so what we're going to need, first of all, is we're going to need images that we're going to draw. So I will take my 4 images here, drag them onto the IDE, and then I need to create variables where I'm going to store them. So I'll store those as pImage objects, like that. Okay? Now I'm going to actually load those in a method called setup, and you'll see why we use this in a minute. In the setup method then, I'll go ahead and load these using the load image method that we've seen before. Save a little time by using some copy and paste. Turns out that Miss Piggy's image is actually a GIF, but that's okay, it works the same. And Freddy. Okay. So that will load those images as soon as the program starts. That's what the setup method does. As soon as the program starts, it loads those images and does whatever else I tell it to do. So the other thing I'm going to tell it to do is to give itself a size, and let's make it a 400 by 400 window. Okay? Now we're going to need to know where we are, so we're going to create another method that gets called automatically. That would be the mouse moved method. Okay, and so inside this mouse moved method, what we're going to do is use a nested if then else to determine which quadrant the mouse pointer is in. So we'll base the upper or lower half on the mouse y variable, which is the y coordinate of the mouse wherever it's at. And if that's less than or equal to the height divided by 2, then I'm in the upper half of the screen. Otherwise, I must be in the lower 1/2 of the screen. Okay? So now inside each of those, I have to decide left or right. So I'll use the mouse x variable for that. And if that's less than or equal to the width divided by 2, that means I'm in the left half of the upper half. So that would be quadrant 1. Otherwise, I'm in the right half of the upper half, which would be quadrant 2. Okay? This code can just be copied down to the lower half because I have the same decision to make on the bottom. That is, whether I'm in the left or the right of the bottom half. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do then is save some information in a variable that tells me what quadrant I'm in when I'm going to draw. Okay, so I'm going to call that variable quadrant, and I'm going to start it out at 0. Later on, that's going to take values of 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on which quadrant I'm in. Okay, and so that I don't have any mystery numbers, I'm going to define constants for each of those values. So quad 1 will represent quadrant 1, and then I'll do the same thing for quadrants 2, 3, and 4, and that way those numbers are just, or those words rather, quad 1, quad 2, quad 3, or quad 4 are just a little bit easier to read later on than 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay? So now I can finish out this method. If I'm in quadrant 1, then I'll set that like this. Okay? And then I'll just adjust these as appropriate. Quadrant 2 Now the left half of the bottom would actually be quadrant 4 because I numbered those in a clockwise manner, and then the right half would be quadrant 3. Okay? Alright, so now every time the mouse moves, it will determine which quadrant it's in. All that's left is to actually draw my picture. Okay? And that happens in the draw method. So the draw method is called every time the screen refreshes. And what we're going to do is, first of all, blot out anything that's already on there so I don't have any residual images, and then draw my picture depending on where the mouse is. And I'll do that with this switch statement of the quadrant. Okay? Got four cases rather. Quad 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like that. Okay? Now all that needs to be done is in each quadrant I need to show the image that's appropriate. So the image for quadrant 1 was Bob the Builder, and I'll just display it at the location where the mouse pointer is. Okay? And I can do the same thing for Hello Kitty in quadrant 2, Miss Piggy in quadrant 3, and Freddy in quadrant 4. Okay? So the switch statement determines which quadrant we're in and then draws the appropriate image. Okay? So let's see how it works. Hopefully I don't have any syntax errors. There we go. So in the lower right, it's Miss Piggy. Lower left is Freddy. Upper left, Bob the Builder. Upper right, Hello Kitty. Okay, so those are all based on the mouse location. Wherever the mouse moves, those images are drawn. Now the images are a little bit offset, so the quadrants don't look quite equal, but that's because we didn't take into account the dimensions of the images themselves. That is, it's just being drawn wherever the mouse pointer is. But the general idea still holds. Okay, so that's a quick example of using a nested if-then-else statement and a switch statement. And then we're also accessing 3 different built-in methods: setup, draw, and mouse moved. All right, thank you very much.